Welcome to the next episode of Supporting Leaders. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from Erika Peterson, who is currently with the Boys and Girls Club of Story County. And I'm just going to read a little bit about your bio, but Erika, first, thank you for being here. I know that you've got a big job and it's early in the morning, but I just am so excited to hear from you. So thank you for doing this interview.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so let me read a little bit about Erika. This bio is really interesting to me because the way it's written too almost like tells this like great story, and you've really identified some things along your life path that have gotten you to where you are, which I just think is fascinating. So she was originally born in Iowa City to two parents who are graduate students. And she feels like they really instilled two lessons: the importance of education and compassion for those who struggle. And this is really what motivated many of her career and educational decisions. This part is really unique that when she was in elementary school, her family moved to Panama. She learned Spanish fluently, and that's really where this passion came alive for diversity. And then, with the political climate in the 80s, overnight one night, her family evacuated, settled in central Iowa. She graduated from Hubbard-Radcliffe. She went to college in Washington, D.C. She was seeking purpose out of college. She headed to Colorado to find some direction in her life, the beauty of the mountains, of course. And that's where she discovered her mission to serve youth after the terrible Columbine tragedy. She decided she'd then dedicate her life to help children and youth find hope and know their own worth. This passion led to a ministry career that took her to France, where she worked with a missionary group for 3 years leading youth events. When she came back to the States, she taught Spanish and then discovered the Boys and Girls Club movement. This dream to inspire hope drove her acceptance of the offer of the permanent position of Chief Executive Officer in February 2014. So what a cool lead into your story. Erika, I just want to hear from you too, being a woman, leading a nonprofit, what is leadership like in this current role that you serve in?
Yeah, so, I would say, first of all, leadership is a journey. If anything that I've learned, in my 7 years in this particular role, I've really come to understand that it is a constantly evolving process. You aren't just a leader. You're not just born a leader. You become a leader. And even if you have some of those natural traits or strengths that folks maybe look for in leadership, it is something that is it can be cultivated and has to be cultivated. I think one of the things that I've really come to understand is that an organization or a group will only grow as much as their leader does. And it's kind of like this, it's like you're almost kind of like the umbrella and a shield for everything that kind of comes at the organization, and you will only cover as much as you cover. And so the broader you are, the more you can really expand your team, your organization, and so on. And so that importance of growth and just continuing on that trajectory is really, really important. As far as being in a nonprofit, I'll say, so this is my first executive role. I've been doing it now, like I said, for 7 years, but had different leadership roles throughout my life, as I think you kind of highlighted there in my biography. But I think some of the things that are really unique about nonprofits is that in the executive seat, you're leading not only your team, who are operationally really developing, in our case, obviously the kids and pushing forward the mission, but then the executive also has a really strong portion in leading the board of directors. And so in nonprofits, our board of directors are all volunteers, so they're not paid. They are invested community members. And so a lot of leadership from the nonprofit perspective is helping to cultivate and recruit those volunteers who can then help to promote the mission within the community. So it's kind of a twofold, I really like visual images. So it's almost maybe kind of like a butterfly, like you've got those two wings that you have to keep moving in sync. Otherwise, if only one is going, if you only have the staff going, but not the board, you're not going to grow. If you only have the board and not the staff, your mission can't get accomplished. So you really have to keep both beating well. And in the executive role, in a nonprofit really kind of helps to tie those two together and keep those closely together, moving in sync. So
Yeah, that butterfly analogy is great. There's so many other aspects of leadership I feel like could really tie into that. And I want to ask you too about, so you and I met in Nevada with the Nevada Boys and
yeah,
Girls Club getting up and going. And just from that
yeah,
experience, watching you serve so many different aspects, so again, like you said, that you're leading a team within the organization, you're leading the board, but then you're also coming in
hmm
and helping get up some of these community groups. You're working with fundraisers, you're working with business leaders in the
yep.
community to help fundraise. So I'm really curious, with all these different kind of personalities that you work with, how does leadership come into play in working with people who might have some very different personalities? You probably run into people with strong personalities. You probably run into
Yeah,
people who you got to
yeah.
help push them along a little bit more. So how do you navigate like all
Right.
of that in a leadership role?
Yeah. So I think flexibility has to be the absolute center of, like, you have to be able to kind of adapt and ebb and flow. I would assume that that's pretty true in almost any leadership role, but I think really in nonprofits, because you are kind of leading, I kind of lead my bosses with the board, but I'm also leading my team. There is that having to adjust quite a bit. I think something that's important is to learn to not to feel threatened, like when because again, when you start really cultivating strong leaders, you want to have strong leaders and strong people around you to help accomplish things. And so learning to really embrace people's strengths, and walk that journey with them and help to kind of cultivate and find that balance. So whether it's those one-on-one coaching conversations, whether it's just really cheering them on, either in a group or privately, kind of whatever works best for them. That's a really, really important piece, I think, to help keep the organization moving forward. But I think that piece of just learning not to feel threatened by other people's leadership and working really, really strongly in conjunction with other leaders is important. And so trusting yourself and trusting that you have what it takes to make it happen, and then trusting your team as well, like really encouraging them to do that. So I think that trust factor is a really important piece. I can say, I think when I first started as a leader, I thought it meant I had to do everything. And so I'm, you've worked with me, I'm a pretty strong driver. I've got a pretty strong personality. And I think early on, I thought that meant that I had to make sure everything was accomplished. And one person can only do so much before they burn out, right? And I recognized that early on and said, you know what, there's too much good work that has to happen here for me to crumble or for me to jeopardize our mission. And so I had to learn to say no. That was a big piece, learn to say no, but learn also how to hand things off and say, I trust you to accomplish this and I trust you to get this done because you are an important part of our mission and our organization, and you are going to help get us there as well. And so learning to take that back seat, I think was one of the most valuable leadership lessons that I've learned along the way, just to allow others to rise and shine, give them that opportunity to grow. And then you start to see everything move forward, because then it's not just central about any particular leader. Then it's really about what is ahead and what's in front and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and too with your job, just thinking about how you have the opportunity to kind of rub elbows and talk to so many people who others could perceive to be intimidating just because of their positional roles. Like
Oh, sure.
so many people
Mm-hmm.
in the community who have our CEOs or owners of these
Right.
big companies. And so, at the beginning, you talked about this like growth of leadership. So when you had to start interacting with some of these people that others could perceive to be intimidating, was that something that just came naturally to you that you're like, yeah, I got this? Or was that part of the growth journey too?
Yeah, I absolutely, that was part of the growth journey. You know, as I had mentioned before, when I came into this position, I hadn't been in an executive role before. So there was, you know, I mean, some of those initial calls that I had to make, or some of the people that I was going to be meeting with, I was kind of like, whoa, okay, you know, so quite honestly, like initially I'm like, wow, I get to talk to this person, that's awesome, or oh my gosh, I get to talk to, oh, what am I going to say, you know, like there's obviously those moments too, you know. Um and and I think part of my trajectory, what I've learned as well, is that being in this seat as CEO, it is part of my role to open doors for the rest of my team. Like, and so you know, I've heard of other leaders talking about that, and I've really come to understand and embrace it, is that my title alone will open doors, and that's a role that sometimes only I can play. And so if, you know, my team is running into obstacles to get something accomplished, you know, picking up the phone and making a call or dropping an email to one of those other high level folks within an organization can get the ball rolling really, really quickly. And so once I learned that that's you know, I would say an advantage and a privilege that I have, but it's also a way that I can help my team just continue to build them up and move our mission forward. And so, so yeah, hopefully that kind of answers the question. So I think, you know, there's still those moments where I'm just like, I'm like, wow, I get to talk to this person. Like, that's so amazing. Like, you know, so it's pretty fun. We're just as a side note, we're preparing for our annual fundraiser right now. So this year we're doing a virtual masquerade, and we have some local celebrities that are going to do some cameos as a part of our event. And so I've had the opportunity to be able to like interact with, you know, with them and kind of get those things moving forward. And if I stop and I think about it, I'm like, wow, you know, 10 years ago, I never would have even, you know, and so it's kind of fun. There's that fun piece too, but just recognizing it's all for the kids, right? That's who we're doing it for. It's just to really help the kiddos out. So
For sure. Okay, yeah, no, let's do a shameless plug. Tell us more about this event. When is it? How could people participate? Can you tell us anybody who's the local celebrity who's going to make a cameo, or is that under wraps?
um, that's under wraps. That'll be part of, you got to log in to see that. So absolutely. So we're doing, it's called our virtual masquerade fundraiser, and you know, masquerade, like this masquerade, but we're playing on the mask, obviously. So, it's taking place February 27th. So coming up here in just a couple of weeks. Registration is free. It's an online, about an hour program. Like, it's not going to be very long at all, but we'll have a couple live auctions going. We're going to have an online auction going the week leading up to the event. We'll have a raffle for this beautiful, beautiful rose gold pendant. And opportunity to hear from a little bit about what the club has been up to and what we're looking forward to doing. Get to see some pictures of the kids and what we're doing too, and what they've been doing. So it's pretty fun. So, but if folks want to visit our website and go to the events tab, the registration link is right there. Like I said, registration is free, but it'll be a great opportunity to support the club and the mission. So.
Perfect. I will put a link when I upload this too on our various locations. I'll put a link right to it. So, okay, I want to take you back for a second before I end with moving us forward. But I want to go back to that moment. Columbine happened, and you know, you included that in your biography, that was an important moment. And so now here you are, fast forward in this executive leadership role. So at that moment when that struck you with Columbine, did you know that I'm going to be in leadership? Like, that's the direction that I want to go. Or what was the steps that kind of happened between that moment to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a really great question. You know, I think that was a pivotal moment in my life. I was really searching. I mean, I think in my bio, it says that, you know, I had left college. I left college early. I was searching. I was really, really wondering how am I going to dedicate my life? Like, what am I going to do with my life? And so when Columbine happened, I was horrified. I mean, I was, as I think so many people were, had the opportunity to go down there and, you know, and see the flowers laid on the cars of the kids who hadn't made it out. And I mean, it was just, I really kind of soaked it all in to not run from that moment in time. And I just found myself saying, you know, God, if there's any way that I could prevent something like this from happening again, I'm all in. So it began, I would say, a very organic trajectory for me. There wasn't like this moment that's saying, I'm going into leadership, I'm going to do that. I don't think there's ever been a point in my life that I said, I'm going to be a leader, or I'm going to, I want to be a CEO, or any of those things. I think it's just really, um, it, it's just been trying to move forward and seeing things that needed to be done and stepping in and trying to help organize groups of people or events to see something get accomplished. And so, um, with kind of hopping back to that moment with Columbine, there were some youth ministry opportunities that started popping up very shortly thereafter, and seemed a good fit with my interests and my energy. And so I kind of started down that, and then each step kind of led to another step. And then, eventually I came into the Boys and Girls Club movement, and then into this role as CEO that has really seemed to kind of capture a lot of the different strengths and maybe things that I've been trying to pull together over my life, but just didn't quite see it that way. So
yeah, that's a beautiful story, really, because no one wishes any sort of tragedy upon anyone or any community, but to, like you said, to take in what happened and utilize that as the spark to, this mission that you've been on, is really a beautiful thing. And I think about too with what's happened with the pandemic. I just listened to a thing the other day from this psychologist who talked about like there's no one who escaped some sort of trauma from this, and about looking forward 10 years down the road, how we need to have a mass intervention system for attending to people's SEL, social emotional needs. And so how are we going to do that? But I think about your story and about how there's opportunity if people use this to inspire themselves, instead of just kind of burying themselves in and being so frustrated about what happened. So I really appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah.
So I want to end with two questions. The first one is, this is a new question. I haven't asked anybody this, so I'm excited to hear how you answer this one. I got this from, I've been listening to podcasts, and this was Eckhart Tolle talked about how Oprah always asks this question. So she always asks, what do you know for sure? But I want to ask you that in terms of leadership. Like, what's one thing that you know for sure about leadership?
One thing that I know for sure about leadership. Wow, that's a stumper.
I should have given you that one in advance.
No, it's great. That's great food for thought. Yeah, the wheels are turning here on this one. One thing that I know for sure about leadership, it can't be done in a vacuum. Leadership cannot be done alone. And so kind of the obvious is, if there's only one person, you're not leading anyone, right? But leadership is about accomplishing something, and really that takes the level of impact that you want, or if you want to have a large impact, you have to be able to move a large group of people. So leadership is about working with people to help accomplish your mission or accomplish your goals. And so it really cannot be done in a vacuum. Another thing that I do know about leadership is that leadership does not require a title. You don't have to be a CEO, you don't have to be a vice president, you don't have to be a principal to be a leader. And actually, I think sometimes you have a lot more freedom to lead when you don't have a title, because you're not constrained by a job description or those sort of things. And so I think that you can really, really forge your own path. You don't have to have a titled job, if you will, to be able to lead and make change. And so I think those would be maybe some two things that I could say I absolutely know about leadership.
Yes, I wish I would have had that advice when I was younger, because I think it took me a long time when I was a teacher in the classroom to understand that as a teacher, that was leadership, because I did totally see it as positional, Okay, so last question.
Right.
What piece of advice would you give someone who's either, an aspiring leader, somebody who's new in the of leadership, what advice would you leave them with?
Yeah. Um, I would say soak in as much as you can from other leaders. So if you're a reader, read as much as you can on leadership. If you are a like someone who, if you're super, super relational and love to be with people, find a mentor or mentees, take your most admired people out to coffee, and really kind of pick their brains. Don't be afraid to ask for that. I think that that's a really, really important piece. Um, I think maybe as women, we might have that a little bit more easy than men. And I'm making a little bit of an assumption here, but I would presume that men in leadership maybe have a little bit more of this, like, I have to have it all together, and to a certain degree, I think as women, we do too. Yeah, we have that image that we're trying to keep, but not being like, don't be afraid to let that down and really, really seek that, because again, like I said, kind of in the beginning, is your organization or your mission, your accomplishments will only grow as much as you do. And so the more that you can continue to learn and grow, the more that those around you will grow, and the more that your organization will too. So
I love it. I don't know if you realized it, but you just took us like full circle, because we started with talking about how leadership is this like growth journey, right? And then like ending it about like, you grow as a leader. If you grow as a leader, then that's how you help grow your organization. So perfect way
yeah.
to wrap this up. So Erika, thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us on the podcast. It was a pleasure connecting with you and getting a
Yeah.
chance to share your message with everybody else.
Yeah, Lisa, thanks so much. It's great to connect with you too. I really appreciate this opportunity. I hope you continue to be well, and yeah, take care.
Thank you.